All right, all you average Jocks fans, thank you for tuning in and welcome to episode 4, where we speak with Brock McBride, a local hockey hero here in Cornwall. We're going to talk about his journey through the different leagues and his coaching, as well as his now time as a trainer, as well as some fun stories, the lightning round, and the blunder of the week. You don't want to miss this. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome, Brock, and thank you for joining us. Today we have an interesting topic. Before we talk about all that, tell us a little about your hockey journey. Where did it all start?
Well, I guess like any Canadian boy, it started on the backyard rink. I got to thank my parents for providing me with that. Probably countless hours of, flooding the rink and shoveling. It's kind of how I grew up and where I got a passion for the game. And I think from there, just minor hockey, South Stormont Selects, Seaway Valley Rapids. I was fortunate enough to be able to play for my hometown and the Cornwall Colts, Junior A. And then, and then I was able to go off to NCAA Division I University, not too far from here in Canton, New York. So that's kind of the path that I took.
Sorry. So I remember going to watch you whenever you played at St. Lawrence University a couple times. And something I always wondered was whenever you're playing for the Colts, you kind of have, like you said, that hometown feel. You're still, for the most part, the players are in high school. What went into your decision to go play like university hockey instead of, let's say, trying to push as an overager for the O or going to, playing in the European leagues like you did later on? Like, what kind of drove you towards the collegiate hockey level?
I think I was a little bit of maybe a late developer. I'm not a very big guy, and I wasn't very big, maybe 5'7.5", 5'8", 170, 165 when I started with the Colts. So, I maybe wasn't ready to play against some of the older guys in the OHL at that point. I just took the Junior A route to develop, and like you said, I was able to play in my hometown, which is really nice for school and stuff like that. And I think that's what made college a better decision for me. Obviously, I was able to play, an hour from here, NCAA Division I, which is amazing, right? That's the closest school other than Clarkson, I guess, you could play at. My parents got to go to all the games, another, deciding factor. And then obviously just the education, to be able to focus on your studies while you're, playing a sport you love was pretty important to me. They do a really good job too in the training component and development. And not to say that the OHL or major junior doesn't, but college, you have a large portion of your day to be at the rink, training or on the ice for extra sessions and stuff like that. So that's kind of what led me toward that decision.
Okay. So Brock, you've played in a lot of or a few different leagues. Which would you say you had the most fun playing in, and why? And was there a specific arena you loved playing in?
I think college hockey for sure would have been, up there with my favorite league or level to play at. Just because there's not a ton of pressure there. You're not fighting to put food on your table like in some respects you are when you're playing pro. You're there for 4 years, and just with the atmosphere that the games have. I don't know if you've been to a college game, but the student sections there, it's crazy, right? So it was just a really good environment to play hockey in and to be able to be on a small campus. The experience was unforgettable for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think the couple times I went to see you, we sat near the student section. I remember a couple beers being spilt on me for sure.
Yeah, there's no shortage of those being. Well, normally they're being drank, but if they were throwing them, might have been cheap beer night. Who knows?
Yeah.
But to answer the other part of your question, my favorite rink, my first college weekend was in Wisconsin at the Kohl Center. I'd have to look up how many fans are that holds, but it was full, and there must, I'm going to say 16,000 fans. So you got to remember, I came from the Cy Miller Arena, playing junior, which, has since been condemned, God bless, rest its soul. But,
Yeah.
and not, I can touch on that after, but, our bus pulled into the Kohl Center, like into the rink. So it was, something I'd never experienced before. My first college game, you had guys like Joe Pavelski in the lineup for Wisconsin. And it was, that was a pretty surreal feeling for me anyways. First time I'd played in front of that many people for sure. And I was actually fortunate enough to score in both games that weekend. So it really set the stage, I guess, for me and gave me some confidence, for the rest of the way. I guess my second favorite rink, I'll have to touch on it, would be the Cy Miller Arena. That was a hostile environment, to say the least, probably for the road teams to play junior in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys got to catch any games there, but
I'm a little younger than Justin. I've definitely done the free skates on the weekends at the Cy, but not to see a game. I think they've already switched over to the Ed Lumley by then.
Yeah, I remember, I think there was 1,700 fans we had for a playoff game, and they were lined for sure to get under fire code. It was there wasn't a seat in the house, and it was just, I don't know if you heard, but they had built a 10-foot wall behind the visiting bench just because our fans were so, crazy trying to, get at the coaches and the other players, during the game. Even the dressing room, we had, these heat pipes going through our dressing room, which fed, I think, the water to the rest of the arena. I don't know, but it made our dressing room a sauna. So in between periods, I sat at the end of the dressing room, I'd open the door for the outside to, get some fresh air because it was so hot in there. And that would be where all the fans smoked in between periods, right there. So there'd be no shortage of pointers they'd be giving you. And, after smoking a couple secondhand cigarettes, you'd go back out for the next period. It was, just the junior epitome of a junior experience you were getting at that rink. So,
well, no kidding.
I'll never forget that either.
Kind of coming out of the dungeon, you got to go up a few steps to get back up to ice level.
Yeah.
I remember you having to duck around, like you said, some pipes to get back up, and I definitely hit my head a couple times on those. So you mentioned playing against Joe Pavelski, in what an experience that was. Has there been any teammates that stuck out to you that you were like, this guy's going to go somewhere, or, this guy really elevated my game?
Yeah, definitely. In the American League, there was always, the younger guys coming through that, you just knew he was going to be a pro or have a long NHL career. Guys like Artem Anisimov, I played with in Hartford, Roman Josi in Milwaukee. I'm trying to think of Houston, Spurgeon, Jared Spurgeon, defenseman. So, you just see that they have, something special.
Yeah. Well, no kidding. Two out of three of those guys now captains in the league.
Yes.
So definitely, no small feat to be named captain of an NHL team for sure.
Yeah.
You always hear that some guys have, and it's mostly goalies, and I was a goalie, so maybe I'm biased, but guys having weird quirks, and they're on the road and they have a specific routine, or they got to do this or they got to do that before a game. Was there anybody that you were just kind of like taken back by some habit or ritual that they had, and you're like, hey, this guy's a little off?
Well, I'm sure. I definitely, everyone has their own little thing. I guess maybe some guys would say this about me. I'd be the guy that they'd be telling you had the crazy habits, but I was pretty anal on my skates and my sticks. Like everything had to be, perfect before the game. I would watch the guys sharpen my skates normally just to make sure everything was the way I wanted it, which was probably a little bit overkill, but I don't know if it made me feel a little bit better on the ice that I knew he was taking a little extra time with my skates. Maybe it was.
So is this like a 16-year-old that played again, or are we talking like trainer when you're at the collegiate level?
More at the collegiate level. I started this, and you know what? You develop a pretty good relationship with the trainers for the most part. Sometimes I'm sure they wanted to kill me, but no, it was good. And, they understood that I cared about my game and about my skates and my sticks and all that. So it was all right.
So you're talking about good relationships you had with the trainer. I know just from playing competitive in other sports, sometimes you're on the road uh, and you rely on these relationships because you're often stuck with a roommate whenever you're going up. So I know probably true for collegiate. Maybe you didn't care as much. Just you're in college, you're living that experience. You're a collegiate athlete. But whenever you got to the A, like what did that look like roommate wise? Like I'm sure everybody's doubling up for a room. Um,
Yeah, like so, especially in the American League, there's a lot of a movement up and down between the NHL and the East Coast League at the time, with the different affiliates. So I happen to be one of those guys. So you usually be getting a different roommate, a lot on the road, I guess. So yeah, you get to see a little bit of everything. Russian and yeah, Russian roommates normally stuck out to me just for the reason that every time they're on the phone, they're speaking so loud and it just sounds like they're at war with the person on the other end of the line. And then they'd hang up the phone and you'd ask them, oh, like, is everything okay? And they'd be, oh yeah, I just put my kids to sleep and told my wife I love her. And you're just thinking, well, I don't know, they're so loud and bold on the phone. It's yeah.
Sounds
So
like my wife
there
when
was
I made a phone call.
there wasn't a lot of quiet time, I guess, in the room with those guys. And you know, uh, some of them would go out nights before games and certain things like this. We were playing in Las Vegas, and I had a roommate. I'm not going to say who it is, but 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a knock on the door, and it was a police officer was wheeling my roommate in a wheelchair, and he just basically just said, "Here, he's your problem now," and he dumped him out into our room, and he explained to me that the roommate had gambled away his suit jacket. He had no jacket on at the bowling alley in the casino below. So we had a game the next day. So you get all types of different roommates on the road.
how did he play though? I think that's the most
Oh,
important.
he was a pretty good player, and I think that's why he did that stuff. He could get away with it.
You can get away with it. Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like some pictures have definitely come out pre Vegas Golden Knights era of I won't bring up this player, but had a stack of cash in his hand outside a Vegas casino, and uh, I'm sure now it's probably a little more tame now that guys are there regularly. But um, yeah, I could
Yeah,
imagine some of the stuff that goes on the road.
I can think, it's no secret why Las Vegas has a good home record, probably. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So now that we've learned a little bit about you as a player, let's talk about you as a coach. When did you know you wanted to become a coach?
I always enjoyed, maybe dissecting the game after a little bit, and for my own benefit while I was playing, just what I could do better. And then later in my career, especially in Europe, the coaches with the veteran players, they rely on them a lot. So that was kind of happening later in my career in Austria, and it was a nice segue after I retired into coaching here in Cornwall with Ian, current coach of the Colts. So I got that opportunity, and yeah, it was something I enjoyed for sure.
All right. So what were the first steps you took to become a coach?
Uh, I just kind of, after I retired, I kind of, Ian and I spoke, and we kind of he agreed that he'd like to have me on the bench. I guess to rewind a little bit, I do run a hockey development company in Cornwall, Only Ice Hockey. So I was always dealing with the development side of players, but maybe not the team aspect. So after Ian and I met, yeah, I became, I think he was the associate coach with the Cornwall Colts for 2 seasons. So
Perfect. So you're doing kind of the Martin St. Louis, going from like you know, doing the triple A to try and make that big jump.
yes, yeah, exactly. I'd coached minor teams and stuff like that before just to help out, but this was the first time I'd coached, junior A, higher caliber hockey, and I've stepped away since then. But it's something I definitely look into maybe in the future once my kids are out of the house or whatever, and I have a little bit more time. So.
So you mentioned that you enjoyed breaking down your play and watching your play after games, and that kind of transitioned to your coaching. How would you say that approach changed? Like, was there anything when you were looking at game tape that changed when you were a player to when you became coach? Like, was there something kind of a switch of kind of that change?
Well, yeah, I think video doesn't lie, right? So as a player, you may have felt that you did something the right way, but once you look at it on video, it might become evident that it wasn't the right decision that you made, and you can't. As a coach, I understand why players in the heat of the moment, sometimes on the bench, disagree with you. As long as it's respectful, as a coach, you can understand that, like I said, and then in between periods or after the game, you bring up the video and show them and maybe try it this way next time, kind of thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just think with all the statistics nowadays, they're breaking the game down in a much different way than when I grew up. They have statistics for everything. Now, as I'm sure it started with the Corsi stats, and it's evolved to much more than that now. So they're really starting to dissect the game in ways that I think are going to help. So
Yeah, full analytic departments now, and for most
right.
teams, it's crazy. Like sometimes I'll look at that and I have to Google what I'm looking at on a stat sheet because the legend of what everything means is already like font 9 and it's like 10 lines long.
Yeah, it's not just the goals, assists, and penalty minutes anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so as a player, just kind of comparing the two again, you know, most guys have the same routine. You're having pregame meal, nap, wake up, dress, go to the rink, kind of do some light warm ups, soccer ball, whatever, and then you're starting to get into game mode. How different is that pregame routine as a coach?
As a coach,
Yeah.
well, I think, yeah, I guess you're not really worried about the nutrition side as much as a coach because your physical performance out there, doesn't really matter. But you have to be sharp mentally. So I guess you're watching game tape of your opponents, all leading up to it. I guess all week in practice, you might be practicing for a certain, for example, power play breakout against the team that you're playing. There's a lot more, I guess, dissecting, like you said, the opponent, and just to prepare yourself for that on game day. And then there's also an element of getting your team motivated and knowing how to get the most out of each player. So, that comes with getting to know your players and kind of, how they tick.
So you were just saying about motivating players and figuring out how they tick. The most probably famous motivational speech I can think of, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a big fan of the movie, but would be Herb Brooks' speech. Do you have any of those iconic speeches in your back pocket? Do you have any of those lined up, for in between periods, maybe going into the third down a goal?
I don't. I think those have to be off the cuff to be, to really. I think it's got to be in the moment. The players, everything's got to be in the moment. Yeah, I don't have any of those rehearsed. That's for sure.
Okay, yeah, I know. I've only ever coached house league, and I definitely know I've rehearsed a couple in the mirror pregame. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to use this, and it never comes out as I want it to. I definitely think I look like Herb Brooks, or maybe like Bruce Boudreau. Whenever if you think back of the what was it, HBO leading up to the Winter Classic series, and he dropped like 15 f bombs, and I'm just like, yeah, this guy's fucking awesome. And it's just, I definitely did not look like that. I wish somebody recorded me. Um, so yeah, I mean, probably why you got into coaching and I didn't. But no, that's good to know. Maybe I'll slow down on the rehearsed speeches, let it come naturally.
What are some of the biggest challenges you come across as a coach, whether it be with players or anything coaching related?
I think it's just that. It's just finding out how each player, ticks. Some players you can come down hard on, and the response you get is positive. Other players, if you come down hard on them or yell at them, they just crumble. Because they need praise or they need, other things to motivate them. So it's just figuring that out. And honestly, the hardest thing is the parents. There's a lot of parent involvement now. And I think it's becoming a problem. I'm not going to get too much into it, but I think kids should do a lot more of the speaking to the coaches and addressing their concerns. It's, these are 20-year-old men. I don't feel parents should be speaking on their behalf because, that's going to translate to their job, to anything in the future. They have to be able to express themselves and deal with, certain tough situations. So I think that the parents are becoming an issue, not in all cases, but they're. And again, I don't know if this is because of possibly an entitlement due to the pay to play. Parents are forking over a lot more cash nowadays, so I get that. So they're heavily invested in this. So
yeah, I was reading an article the other day. It went from like I want to say early 2010, the average of competitive was like $5,000, and like we're not talking junior A, probably not even junior B. Like I think the it was written like triple A or double A, went from $5,000 to this year the average being $10,000. So the average being like that's not even the highest, right? Like that's like to me spending over $10,000, like you're now looking at like it's almost an elitist sport. And I
right,
think you hit it on the head whenever you were talking about how it's almost a sense of entitlement. Like I just dropped 10K. You better be playing my kid. He better be on the first power play. He's wearing a letter on his jersey. But I don't know. Like I also feel like, and I might get some flack for this, that I'm in my mid 20s, and I even feel like my siblings' generation are so much more like sensitive. Like they can't take that constructive criticism,
right,
and a coach has to be so careful on the way he words stuff because you are also in that sense of like the cancel culture, and maybe not so much at the NHL level or really any higher end level, but you're looking at like the minor hockey again, and you can run into troubles with that. And I just think it's do you think it's also a kind of the times of how society is now with people not being able to take that criticism, and it's me, poor my feelings. Um,
yeah. It's getting back to one of the tough parts about coaching as well is you have to, and sometimes you have to walk on eggshells and not address these situations the way you would like to, just because of what you're saying. There's a lot of people that take things the wrong way or find some things offensive. At the end of the day, hockey's a rough and tough sport, and if you want to play hockey, I'm not saying you have to be that way all the time, but you do have to be able to take some constructive criticism, especially if you want to get better. And at the end of the day, everyone should want to get better, especially in the minor leagues, right? So minor hockey. Anyway, that's just my thought. I do think it is going, it's getting a little bit, tougher to really come down on a kid, and maybe, but that's the way everything's going. So.
yeah, and I mean, I feel like we're seeing even in the NHL that kind of translate where you have all these big name coaches that have been let go in the last few years for either comments they've made or stuff they've done that at the time nobody batted an eye and it wasn't an issue. You'll get Joel Kenville, Bill Peters, Michel Terrier has had some issues with stuff that he said, and he's still even saying them. He came out, a couple weeks ago making comments about PK Subban. So I feel like, even coaching now, even at the higher levels, is becoming to be politics. And, sign of the times that, you said this a decade ago, but you're going to pay now. So how does that make that harder to kind of mold your coaching style? Like, guys growing up, at least myself, like I would have been like, I would have loved to have played under these guys at the time. But now it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of messed up.
Well, unfortunately, what a lot of people don't realize is, the kids that you can see can take the constructive criticism, and the parents who are, they're on board. because they realize that that's what's going to develop their child into a not just maybe a hockey, a successful hockey player, but it's just going to mold them for life skills. For the first time that their boss comes down on them hard, or the first time that they face adversity later on in life. So, as a coach, you're looking past hockey. You're trying to mold them as a person as well. So, getting back to your question, I think when there's selections to be made, you're going to be taking the kids that fit that mold, and not the ones that are going to maybe break down. And it's really hard. It's tough because you want to give everyone the same chance, but at the end of the day, you want to take the kids that are going to get the most from your coaching too. So
So I guess my next question would be, who's the best coach you ever had? Like, I know some people, like my dad often coached all my teams, and again, probably biased because it's my dad, but I feel like he did a great job of relating to the guys we had on our team and putting people in situations where he knew they were going to thrive. Not everybody has that experience with either their parent or any coach. So who would you say, was the coach that was able to get through to you the most?
I had there's a lot of different types of coaches you run into. For example, Lane Lambert in Milwaukee, who's now I think with the Islanders, I believe. X's and O's. He was absolutely incredible. I think we had 4 power play breakouts that we were switching silently all game. So the other team couldn't get a read on us. And you had guys like Mike Yeo, I played for in Houston. Also, I think he's in Vancouver now.
Yeah, I believe so. I think he's a assistant for them.
Also very, very, very brilliant coach. Nothing but respect for those guys. And then you had a guy like Joe Marsh over at St. Lawrence, who, I think he was at the end of his coaching and wasn't as much of an X's and O's guy. He was more of a motivator. So for a guy who really studied the game, I appreciated the motivator, because that's what helped me, get ready for the game. And Joe was a guy I just wanted to play for. I had a lot of respect for him, and you just wanted to win and help the team succeed for him. So, as a coach, you try to be someone who your players want to play for and want to win for. At the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing.
For sure. It's like going to war. You need somebody to lead. And if you can get guys to buy into your system, I think that's going to translate onto the ice for sure. So on the flip side of this question, I won't ask you to say a name unless you want to. But if you can think of the worst coach you ever had, I won't even have you say a team. What league are we talking?
American Hockey League.
Really? That's not the answer I was expecting. I'm a little more intrigued now. Can
So
you talk about?
and you're saying worst coach, when you're not playing as a player, I guess you find a million reasons why the coach might be your worst coach, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure I've had players that didn't like my coaching style, and it's probably not the ones I played 25 minutes a game, right? It's the ones that were sitting on the bench or maybe not in the lineup.
So other than obviously the discrepancy on what you felt you should be playing compared to what he was giving you, was there anything else that just he was not good at, like that he just?
I didn't see there wasn't a ton of respect toward the players, and you're dealing with guys who are up and down in the NHL. Not respect's earned, not shouldn't be just be given, but I think these guys deserved it, and we weren't winning at that time, so maybe he was in a tough situation too. You don't know everything, but I personally did not enjoy my experience playing for him. So,
did this coach end up going anywhere? Like, did he ever end up going to the NHL in any?
No, I think that might have been his last year.
Well, by the way, you made him sound probably rightfully so.
All right, Brock, we have a tough question for you here.
Yeah.
Which is harder, being a coach or being a player?
I think definitely being a coach, just because when you're a player, you can actually change things to do. For example, if you want to do something differently, you have the ability to change to do that. As a coach, you can tell the player what maybe you think they're doing wrong, but or what might work better. But sometimes you can't change how they approach that situation the next time. And that is the most frustrating part about coaching is when you're dealing with some players who, for some reason or another, just refuse to change or try the suggestions that you're giving them, I guess. So it's one of those things where if you could just do it for them, you would, but they're the player at the end of the day, so they gotta do it themselves.
All right. Joel, you have an opinion on this?
Yes, I do. I definitely think that it's much harder to be a coach. I agree with Brock. Um, you have to try and navigate, as we were saying earlier, so many different personalities, and you have roughly 20 guys per team, and you kind of have to walk that fine line of stroking somebody's ego to get the most out of them, but also show tough love at times. And everybody has a different learning style and different abilities to grasp concepts. So you're never going to get through to all 20 guys the same, and kind of like what Brock was saying, get the most out of every guy. Um, and kind of like what you said earlier about, the coach that you didn't really like, you know, you may have an opinion or think, this guy needs 10, 20, 25 minutes, whatever it is. And, you know, whether they agree or disagree on, you know, your allotment of time or the tasks that you're giving them, whether you're in a shutdown role or if you're put on the ice, and they're looking towards you to get that game tying goal or game winning goal. Um, you know, for me, once you're off the ice, now they have those tablets. The assistant coach comes over, hey, do this differently. But for a coach, there's no shift off. Like you're constantly adapting shift by shift, period by period to the game. Um, and there's there's not only one name that I need to back up what I'm saying here. Um, you know, Wayne Gretzky, great player, did not turn into a great coach. Record in Arizona, um, not very good. 143, 143 wins, sorry, 161 losses, 24 OT losses during 4 seasons with the Coyotes. That translates into like a .473 win percentage. And people are going to say, coaching the Coyotes not very good. Not very competitive team. Still kind of true to this day. But you know, after Dave Tippett took over coaching with 15 of the exact same players that Gretzky had the year before. So that's like 3/4 of the team. Um, he bumped that up to over a 500 record. So, um, you know, to me, going from 4.73 to 0.609, that's a big jump. And he's not the only one. Guys that are great players that don't necessarily transition to great coaches, or just because you had success as a player doesn't mean you're a good coach. Brian Trottier lasted only half a season behind the bench for the Islanders. Larry Robinson was sub 500. Bob Gainey, sub 500. And those two coached more than 8 years in the league. So you can't tell me that they had 8 years of bad teams. Even in a rebuild, 8 years is a long time to have a bad squad. Hopefully, being a Habs fan, the times have changed, and maybe Martin St. Louis will be able to have a winning record. So, as they would say in French, bonne chance. But the odds in history aren't on his side.
Well,
What do you
I,
think,
I,
Brock?
I think it's a result of the names you mentioned. The game probably came easy to most, if not all, of those names. So on the flip side, as a coach, maybe Wayne Gretzky doesn't understand why someone can't figure something out in a split second that he was able to figure out. So it's about being able to relate to the players on the level that they're at, I guess. And as we all know, there's no players that were at the level of Wayne Gretzky. So I think that would probably be the biggest challenge for him, and that was the obstacle he was struggling with a bit.
So, like, going back to kind of the player mentality of that, like, are there guys that you played with, whether on a line or just on the team, that were so talented? And obviously, you can't compare somebody to Wayne Gretzky, but were just kind of that couple steps ahead of everybody else, and just when like didn't really gel well because of that reason?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some players that you just knew everything came natural to them. So, they didn't have to maybe train, or they didn't have to follow perfect nutrition or even buy into the team's systems in all instances, and they were still very effective. And I think that, as a coach, could be frustrating at times, but sometimes you just got to say, look, if the guy's still effective and helping our team win, how do you go against that? I guess there's a fine line there, right?
So is that kind of like the category that Phil Kessel falls under?
You know what? Like, Phil Kessel can eat as many hot dogs as he wants, in my opinion. If he's going to score, that many goals, and you know what, be on the ice every night. He just, set the Ironman record.
Yeah,
There's something to be said there for the salary they're paying these guys. They got their bang for their buck out of Phil Kessel.
yeah. I don't think I would have, if you would have told me at the beginning of his career, maybe even let's say like when he was playing for Toronto, you know, put a little FanDuel bet. This guy is gonna be an iron streak just based on his conditioning. I would have said there's no chance in hell. Um, but obviously he has proved us wrong. Phil did what I couldn't, and play at a high level while eat like shit. So um, yeah, I mean let's
Yeah,
hope he continues defying odds.
yeah. Like, I don't know if he's the poster boy for the fitness gurus and everything like that, but there's something to be said for just getting it done. Phil does that.
All right, Brock. We all know that trainers play a huge role in the player development, which is essential for players to be able to perform to the standards coaches expect. You have the perfect trifecta of experience. So, Brock, tell us about your development company, On the Ice Hockey.
Yeah, I started out while I was playing. It was just something kind of to do in the summertime, running ice times throughout the summer, getting kids on the ice. I think nowadays, and it's almost unfortunate this is the case, but you have to play the sport year round if you want to be successful, especially at a high level. Now, do I fully agree with that? Maybe not, but at the end of the day, that is the way it is, because if you're not doing it, someone else is. And, the quicker you get to those 10,000 hours, the quicker you become an expert in anything, right? So, that being said, there's a strong demand for development, especially here in Cornwall. We're a hockey town. So, I've just been slowly with a business partner, Jeff Carter. We've been growing our company, and we run tournaments now. We do. We have a building in Cornwall where we have a gym and a synthetic ice rink. We do hockey schools all summer long. And we run a lot of different power skating and different development clinics for local associations in the area. Yeah.
All right. How important do you think diet is in training,
Diet.
excluding Phil Kessel, obviously?
I think it's becoming more important because, like I said, there's more kids taking hockey very seriously. They used to say training camp used to be when you'd go to get into shape. That's not happening anymore. People are eating right all the time. They're training all the time, and I think it's it means that if you can gain any edge on your the guy next to you, you need to do it. So nutrition is one way you can do that. I think, me personally, I probably had a stronger emphasis earlier in my career on that. And then as I got a little bit older, I still ate well and had my routines, but I probably wasn't as crazy about it for sure. As far as, pregame meals and all that stuff. So.
I mean, I know at least when I was playing competitive and I played competitive soccer, we'd go and hit the weight room, and I would say I probably followed the Phil Kessel eating regime, and I can just imagine he was probably similar in the weight room, or the kid in gym class, and when I say the kid, I mean myself. Whenever the gym teacher, is walking by, everybody's in a line doing push-ups or sit-ups, and gym teacher's going, you're pumping hard, you're like, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 10, and then gym teacher, walks past you, and you just kind of like let yourself go, and you're like, fuck, okay, and then the teacher turns around, you're like, hey, yeah, 25, 26, and you just keep going. And I think the 1-2 skip a few trick is probably, that's what I imagine Phil to be like. And I don't want to turn this episode into a Phil Kessel episode, but I feel like I can't think of enough. Maybe like Dustin Bufflin, maybe being the only other NHLer I can think of that was just like, fuck that. Like all the guys are going to like a steakhouse or or doing looking at the carbs, the protein, kind of like measuring out. And Bufflin's like, fuck this, we're going to the Golden Corral over down here in Florida. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for guys who can do that. I think if you're eating right all the time, having a meal before a game that isn't maybe the perfect meal, it isn't going to make the biggest difference. But yeah, I know, for example, one time I was playing in Milwaukee and I had a teammate who regrettably I let convince me to go to a Thai restaurant for pregame meal. And Milwaukee's not really known for their Thai cuisine, I'm sure.
I was going to say, I've definitely heard of some Milwaukee Thai fusion restaurants for sure.
Yeah. Well, this one, I don't know. Anyway, I shouldn't have listened to him. I went to the Thai restaurant and I don't think warm-up was over. And I was back in the dressing room on the toilet. Like it was ridiculous. Yeah, I think, and I was a call-up. I don't even think I was present for the pregame speech because I was probably still in the bathroom. But yeah, that's one of the times I kind of went off the board for a pregame meal, and I'll never do it again.
All right. So for all you listeners, if you're in the Milwaukee area, Thai food, maybe stay clear from them.
Yeah, you might want to steer clear.
Yeah. This episode is also brought to you by Charmin Ultra. So, Brock, I just want to thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We hope to have you on again soon. I think given me a lot more appreciation. Maybe I'll take my gym trainer a little more seriously. Kids, listen to your coaches. Anything else you want to say, Brock, before you head off?
I just think for kids listening, if you want to you just want to be a coachable kid, and we always say that, but just take in, you don't have to agree with everything your coach says, maybe, but just think about it, I guess, and think about why they're saying what they're saying, and try it. Just try to maybe follow your coach's instructions, and you don't want to be that kid that just goes against what your coach is saying. And I think at the end of the day, that's what makes you a coachable kid, and that's the type of kids that coaches want on their teams and teammates want. So
all right, Brock, well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed yourself just as much as we did. We look forward to having you back on the show in the future if you would like to join us again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Brock. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye. All right, now it's time for our lightning round. This is where Justin asks me 3 hockey topics. I have 1 minute to respond to each topic, 3 minutes total, and we'll get right into it.
All right, Joel, this one's going to be a fun one. Here we go. Question number 1. So in Florida, Barkov and Huberdeau barely played on the same line. Now in Calgary, Huberdeau's on the top line and, well, it's just not really playing well. Now, was he just good in Florida because of his matchup on that second line? Or is his early struggle just a fluke? Will we see production like we did last year from him at all?
That is a great question, actually. And I've been eyeing Jonathan Huberdeau in our fantasy hockey league. I think that it may just be the new surroundings, right? He played close to a decade, if not a little longer, in Florida. And even though he may not have played with Barkov, I feel like, he was the staple in that dressing room. He was comfortable. And, you go from a hockey market like Florida, and I don't want to knock any of the Panthers fans, especially my buddy Tyler Curry, but the Panthers don't really have a huge fan base. I don't think there's a lot of pressure there. You're going to the Calgary Flames where, Canadian market, it's going to be bumping. I think that a little more pressure, new environment, maybe he's not all comfortable. I think that it's just environmental at this point. I think he's going to bounce back. He's too good of a player not to.
All right. I think that's a good response there, Joel. All right. Question 2. This one's a fun one, easy one for you. Who's going to finish with more goals and points, Caulfield or Suzuki?
Ooh, I think the answer varies. I think Cole Caulfield will finish with more goals just from his natural ability of finishing, especially with being the the shooter on the power play, kind of like Ovi and Stammer are on their respective power plays. Even though they're tied at goals at the filming of this episode with 8, I think that Caulfield's ceiling for goals is a little higher, and I think Suzuki's more of a playmaker. He's still going to put in goals. I see him more maybe 20, 25, but I can see him being up there maybe 40, 50 assists just based on his hands. So I think Caulfield will finish higher in goals, but Suzuki will overall finish higher in points.
Okay, Joel, now for a fun one. Think Ryan Reynolds will buy the Senators?
That is a good question. I think Ryan Reynolds will be a part of an ownership group that sends a package to Eugene Melnick's family and their representatives. But I think he would be used more as an attraction piece. I think that the Ottawa Senators, it's not news to anybody. Attendance isn't the best. I think that Ryan Reynolds, being a part of that ownership group will draw crowds in. I think anybody that's willing to put in a bid, as long as Ryan is interested, would be dumb not to try and include him, just for that name, that draw. He already owns a soccer team over in Europe, and the draw that they've gotten since his acquisition and the theme nights and the fun in his presence there has only done good things for that organization. So I think, why not? I think he's definitely going to be in a bid. I don't think he's going to be a majority owner, just on how much it costs to run a team nowadays. But I do see him in a package as being that enticing name to bring some more fans into the seats.
All right, well, that wraps up this week's lightning round. Now we move on to our final segment, Blunder of the Week. Now this one's a little bit of a controversial topic, but we're not going to shy away from anything on this show. So Joel, this week's Blunder of the Week goes to the Boston Bruins, and I'll let you explain why.
So, I'm sure everybody has heard, unless you live under a rock, that the Boston Bruins had signed Mitchell Miller to a contract. And obviously with his history of bullying when he was drafted by Arizona in, I believe it was 2020, and they renounced that pick because of everything that came out. The Bruins decided it was a good idea to go ahead and sign him 2 years later. Thought maybe enough, smoke is cleared and, decent hockey player that they can pick up, and nobody was really paying attention to because of the controversy. Thought that they could pick him up and get a steal. I mean, the kid was 14 whenever he made these decisions. And I'm not defending the decisions. I don't think it was right. I don't think that anybody should treat any other human being that way. But I think it comes down to the debate of, do you punish the kid for, making a stupid mistake when he was 14, compared to him being an adult now? I don't know, what came in terms of an apology and what didn't. And, I don't know what he did for growth of himself or, whatever he's done to rectify the mistakes he's made. But I think, the bigger picture here is the Boston Bruins. Montreal did this with Logan Mailloux a few years ago, and I know the big thing came out is the media team didn't know about this, and the owner was consulted, but maybe just didn't do enough homework. And you would think that was recent enough that the Bruins would have been able to kind of learn from Marc Bergevin, Jeff Molson's mistake of kind of dipping your hand in that cookie jar of I don't want to say cancerous players, but players that have a negative connotation around them and that come with backlash. That happened recent enough in history that they have to. They couldn't have thought that this was a good idea, and for it to go through, Don Sweeney, the GM, Cam Neely, the president of hockey operations, the Boston Bruins ownership group, probably their lawyers, their PR team. That alone, to me, just baffles me how everybody's like, yeah, this is a good idea. And then, you have to submit paperwork to the NHL. So for Gary Bettman to come out, 24 hours later, if it was that, oh my God, we're, no way we're letting this kid play in the NHL. How did it even get as far as them being able to announce this? Somebody got papers at the NHL head office. They have to give everything through there before they can make anything official. How the hell did it get through so many people before they're like, yeah, we fucked up? To me, that just baffles me. There's no way that it fell through the cracks that many times. Maybe they were just hoping that the backlash would have been less. I mean, good for the victim and their family for sticking up for, themselves. What's next for this Mitchell Miller? I have no idea. Maybe Europe. I highly doubt, anybody in North America is going to sign him. But, to me, the blunder more or less goes to the Boston Bruins and really the NHL in a whole of give your head a shake. What did you think it was going to be? I don't know. It just baffles me. I can't even think of what was going through their minds of this is a good idea. And like I said, I just feel like the Logan Mailloux thing didn't happen that long ago, and they seen what happened. And I'm not going to try and judge what's worse, what's better in between their cases. But I just feel like the NHL is different compared to the NBA or the NFL when it comes to conduct. You guys will remember a few years back, stuff with Adrian Peterson that came out, or Michael Vick, or, in the NBA, there's people arrested for guns. Who was it? Was it Gilbert Arenas? I think it was just brought a gun to the arena. I don't know. I just feel like the conduct the level at which the NHL and the owners expect their players to perform, is higher. They're held to a higher regard, in my opinion. That, like, this was never going to fly. I just want to give a shout out. I feel like a lot of the Bruins players spoke out publicly against their GM and against ownership or Cam Neely, whichever. Notably, Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand, how they wouldn't stand for that in the culture in the dressing room. Kind of almost that he wouldn't be welcomed, which I think speaks volumes for who they are as people. It's not easy speaking out against your boss, especially being openly critical. I feel like you rarely see that in sports or really in life at all. At such a stage for somebody to call out, saying, what you did isn't right. Good for them. I just think the whole situation's unfortunate, and they dropped the ball big time. And I mean, they're going to have to make up some way. I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a charitable donation or something to kind of try and fix this, similar to what the Habs did. And I'm sure the player will also, seek counseling and whatever to try and rectify and clean up his name a bit. But all in all, I think they just need to be better. The league needs to be better, and just people in general be kind to each other. Because, bullying in any form isn't right. And it's very sad what he did to this kid. But, at some point, both these people are going to have to move on with their lives and hope that they know better and hope that they've grown from this. I think that, whatever Mr. Miller does, career-wise, whether it's in hockey, sports, or any other field, I'm sure this weighs on him every day, as it does, I'm sure, the victim, and affects what the victim does and their family. And, just all in all, I think that everybody needs to grow and really think about what their actions take place, whether you're 14, 45, or 72. Your words and your actions have consequences, and maybe just keep that in mind. And we're in an age where, technology and everything's recorded, and, people are always listening, and a snapshot can be taken, and, there's just a lot of consequences to your actions. So I know this was pretty lengthy, and Justin was nice enough to let me ramble on, but, it's a heavy subject, and I think it warranted, a little bit of time to kind of explain and to walk everybody through. And I'm sure everybody has their own opinions on what the Bruins should have done differently, or, how the NHL reacted, or, what should be done. But to me, it's just there's too many mistakes made and too many times. And hopefully everybody involved learns from this.
All right, Joel. Well, thank you for that. I will add one thing for any young adults listening. Just remember, every action you make will have consequences and can affect you, whether it be now or down the road. So kindness always.
All right, and next week on the podcast, we welcome Jamie Clement, former NHL goaltender, TSN analyst, TSN 1050 Toronto radio host, NBC Sports, NHL Network, former goalie, and also co-host on TSN 1050 of the Overdrive. So we are very excited to welcome him next week. We're going to talk all things hockey as usual. This is going to be a great episode. You're not going to want to miss this.
And on that note, we will end this week's episode of Average Jocks Hockey Podcast. And we thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you all next week.